So, welcome to The Deeper You Go, the weirder it gets. I'm your host, Garrett Rennan. So, this episode is about generational trauma, and I take a deep dive into what is it, and is it even real? Now, before we get into that episode, as always, if you enjoy this show, please like it, subscribe to it, leave a review, or share it with your friends. And also, another way to support is get you some gear. I have podcast gear, I have t shirts, hoodies, hats. I also have pine pollen, Elysian tallow, and I have the Unplugged Journal, which is a great tool for helping you with your daily practices. Because never forget that progress is made in what you do when no one's looking, in the mundane, in the small tasks. See, it's easy to do big things. It's easy to go to ceremony or to take an online course, but what do you do when no one's looking? Well, the Unplugged Journal is the perfect way to help you with that. I also have a 90-day initiation course which can help you focus, unplug, and find discipline in your life. Now, with all that being said, let's get in to the episode. Okay, so what is generational trauma and is it even real? Now, I'm not going to lie, the first time I heard someone say the words generational trauma, I rolled my eyes. And the reason that was is because it felt like this person was making an excuse for where they were, that they weren't taking personal responsibility for their lot in life. Not to mention, it just sounded so ridiculous because we all have a lot of problems that we're trying to deal with. And now people are taking on their generational problems. They are fixing not only themselves, but all their entire ancestral line. And it sounded at the time ridiculous. And also, not helping the situation is that person who said the term generational trauma just so happened to be a person who was suffering from a textbook case of victim mindset. And so at the time, it made me feel like they were just doing what they always do and blaming outside circumstances for their lack of success. And not to mention, and I brought this up many times, is that there is a real legitimate problem in the quote unquote healing industry of people getting stuck in a never ending cycle of healing, which obviously is not good. And I've said this before, and I will say it again, that healing is and will always be a part of your journey, but healing will only take you so far. See, at some point on your journey, ideally sooner than later, you need to begin your journey of growth. Growth is where the true healing begins. And so, bringing it back to this generational trauma ideal, I thought that's exactly what people were doing, or it's what I thought this person was doing. I thought they were trying to avoid growth because the truth is, and people may not like to hear this, is that growth is much harder than healing. And because of that, most people avoid growth at all cost. See, when people are on their healing journey or they are in the process of healing, they essentially get a get out of jail free card, right? Because when you are healing, no one expects much from you. In fact, most people will give you the time and space and energy to heal, which is awesome and which is how it should be. However, once you step into that growth phase, people's expectations of you start to increase. See, when you are in your process of growth, you are expected to push and challenge yourself. You are expected to take calculated risks. You are expected to step into the unknown and to step into and fulfill your potential. And as we all know by now, doing any of those things is extremely hard, right? It takes work, it takes sacrifice, it takes stepping into the unknown, and it forces you and requires you to face your fears. So given those two choices, the choice of laying around and healing, and again, I want to be crystal clear that I am not making light of healing. Healing is very important, but this needs to be said. So given those two choices, the choice of laying around and healing and being gentle with yourself, or stepping into the fire and taking on challenges and forging a new life, most people sadly will choose the path of constant healing. Now, with all that being said, right, let's bring it back to this idea of generational trauma. As I've gone further along in my journey, I now believe and I now know that generational trauma is 100% real. But how much it affects you and the best way to deal with it, well, that's complicated. And I think we're still discovering the best way to work through this. So when I thought about it, what is generational trauma? What it really is it's the matrix. And if you really want to heal your generational trauma, you have to start by first unplugging from the matrix. All right, so let's unpack this idea a little further. See, most of your thoughts, beliefs, and opinions are not yours. You think they're yours, but they're not. You do not see the world how it is. You see the world how you were programmed to see it. The person you believe you are is a product of your initial conditions. You're a product of where you were born, the country you were born, the state you were born, whether or not you were born in a small town or a big city. All of that matters. Even the time. If you were born in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or the 2000s, then your worldview is radically different. Also, what type of town or city did you grow up in? And did you grow up in a religious household? Were you rich or were you poor? Did your parents stay together? Or were you raised by a single mom or a single dad or your grandparents? Were your parents healthy? Did they eat good food? Did they have positive attitudes? Were they on medication? Did they suffer from depression? Was your household violent or peaceful? See, the list goes on, and all these things are your initial conditions, and they program you to see the world in a very specific way. And what becomes mind blowing is that if any of those variables about your childhood were different, you would see and view the world through a completely different lens, right? Imagine now if you grew up in Japan or Mexico or Russia, how much different your worldview would be. Imagine if you grew up rich instead of poor. Imagine if you went to private school or you were homeschooled instead of going to public school. Imagine if your dad stayed around and your mom stayed sober. If any of those things were different, for better or worse, you would be completely different. And in fact, you would be so different that I guarantee you would not even be able to recognize yourself. And if that's not crazy enough, you were also born into a system that has been rocking and rolling long before you got here. See, think about it. One day you just spontaneously appeared into this world, born into a game that has been going on for hundreds, if not thousands of years before you even showed up. See, if you believe mainstream history, and I'm 50-50, but for this example, let's believe what we're told. So we are told that the United States of America was formed in 1776. So that means if you were born in the United States, and if you are around my age, that means that the US has had about 200 years of setting up laws, rules, governments, the education system, businesses, acquired land, fought wars, drew borders, all before you got here, which is crazy to think about because although all of that was outside of your control, you had nothing to do with it. And all of a sudden, bam, here you are, born into this system, and you have to figure out what is going on. Where am I? Who am I? What can I do? What's legal? What's not legal? You have to figure this all out, all while getting told misinformation and propaganda while going to school. So, yeah, this is tough. So, what does this all mean? This means that you are not your initial programming, you are not your initial conditions. And most importantly, it means that the person you think you are is really just a product or a victim, depending on how you want to look at it, of all these factors that are outside of your control. And these factors go all the way back to the beginning, since the beginning of time. So, what do we do with that information? Well, here's what I believe. I believe that Earth is a school for your soul. But this school is not some woke institution that's just going to give you a passing grade just for showing up. No, this school is the real deal and it plays for keeps. And in fact, if you don't pass, if you don't graduate Earth School, then you are forced to come back over and over and over again until you get it right. And oh, by the way, karma plays a huge role in how, where, and who you come back as. So, the purpose of Earth School is for you to discover your purpose and to fulfill your potential. And the way you do that is by shedding your initial programming and then rediscovering your true self. See, here's the truth. You are here for a reason, and there is a reason that you are in the exact position you are in right now. So the question then becomes, why are you here? And what is it that you can do that no one else can? You are supposed to discover what part you are here to play in this grand cosmic orchestra. See, I believe that every one of us has a role and a duty to fulfill. But this is where it gets interesting. And this is why Earth School is so tough, because there is no guarantee that you will accomplish your mission. There is no guarantee that you will fulfill your purpose or that you will even discover your gifts. But like I said, that's the game, that's the challenge, and that is generational trauma. So, what is the best way to get rid of generational trauma? What is the best way to shed your initial programming and to shed all those initial conditions that are shaping your reality that you have nothing to do with? Well, the first step is you have to free your mind, right? You have to let go of your old beliefs, thoughts, opinions. You essentially have to let your old self die. And then once you burn down all that external input, once you remove all your programming, once you unplug from the matrix, you then have to go on a journey to help you remember and rediscover who you are and why you are here. And yes, this is a monumentous task. And no one gets it right on the first try. I mean, hell, I'm willing to bet that no one gets it right on the first 100 tries. I don't know how long it takes, but it takes a long time. Maybe even if you do it right, it takes several iterations of doing it right, and each time kind of leveling up your position in the Earth School until one day, bam, you're able to graduate and you move on to the next level. So like I said, this is a monumentous task, but one thing you can do and you should do is that you should enjoy the process. You should enjoy this process of unplugging and discovering who you are, right? Because this process is all you have. But in order to do that, you have to understand that there is no such thing as playing it safe. Remember, Earth School is no joke. And so if you want to level up, if you want to figure out how to graduate from this crazy school that we are in, you're going to have to take chances. You're going to have to make leaps of faith. You're going to have to push boundaries and you're going to have to unlearn everything it is that you have been told about this planet. about this earth, about this country, about our history. And I want to tell you that I do not have all the answers. In fact, I am on this journey and I am in this school with you. But I can tell you this. I can tell you if you have made it this far, if you are watching this video, if you are listening to these words, I can tell you you're on the right path. So keep going and let me know how I can help. See you on the other side.